Hello.
Hello. We'll
Hi.
wait for just a second to see if anybody seems to pop in with us. As long as it says 0 viewers down there, I think we're safe to assume that we are all alone. It's been pretty accurate in saying, I don't know if y'all can see the number of viewers, maybe because I'm the one broadcasting it, I can see it.
Where do you see it at?
It's on the bottom portion of my screen.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything.
When I click over here to just me, do you see my face? Like only the video portion? You don't see my entire screen?
Um, no, I'm just seeing your face.
Okay, I have a little stop broadcast option. I show the links that I sent y'all, the links that I put onto the website, and I can see the number of viewers. So for the time being, I think we can assume we're alone.
Okay. Do you want me to click on the Weebly link just to see if it's showing us?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think it. I'll go make sure I've published it as well.
I clicked on it earlier and it worked and it said the broadcast will start soon.
Okay, cool. So then the correct link is in there. Oh, we have a viewer now. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. So, welcome to our first shot at an online parent showcase. Glad you hopped on and joined us. I'm glad that things are working. Um, we might just kind of give it a couple minutes for the first wave to hop in, since we're just a couple minutes past 7 o'clock, so that people have a chance to kind of refresh the Weebly page, make sure the link is working, so they can hop in, get everything running the way they need it to. If you have a question and you want to get it to us, feel free to email any one of us. I think we all have an email option available to us, so we can read that email. Or if you have a Google account already set up with you, or you're on a PC or a Mac laptop, in the bottom portion of this screen, it should give you the option to join the conversation now. I have a question answer tab open in Google Hangouts, so I can see your question. I'll be able to read it out, and the teacher who it's kind of directed to, or any of us at that point in time, can answer that question. So we've got. Why don't we wait until about 7:05? At 7:05, we'll kind of get the first wave of explanations of what we did for the fifth and sixth grade GT pullout going. Um, I'm Evan Carpenter. You want to introduce yourselves just a little bit?
Sure, I'll go next. My name is Lindsay Stevens, and I am one of the first and second grade and fifth and sixth grade GT teachers.
I'm Tammy Molnar, and I joined the GT team this year, and I am part-time, and I work with third through sixth graders. It's been a really fun experience.
I'm Amy McNamara, and I work with third and fourth and fifth and sixth.
We'll give about another minute before we kind of start running through a couple of kind of preset questions to give you an idea of what we did in 5-6 this year, or this semester. Well, I guess this year. And then if you have any questions, absolutely please send those our way. We'd love to address those for you. If you have any specific questions you want answered by us, you have a couple options. You can email them to any one of us. We have email available to us right now, so we can read them from there. Or if you're on a PC or a Mac laptop, you can click the Join a Conversation Now tab button in the bottom left-hand corner of the YouTube channel. That will prompt you to enter your Google account or set one up. You can type a question into the question answer tab on the right-hand side of your screen. That'll pop up to me, and I can read it out to the panel, and we'll get that answer for you. So as we kind of have people popping in now, and we're having this first shot at an online showcase going. Why don't we get started just by kind of explaining what we did in the two classes that we taught this semester, You can talk about kind of what you did in those lessons, what your objectives were, what you were hoping the students came out of those lessons having accomplished, anything that kind of goes into that system. Lindsay, you want to start for us?
Sure. I'll just start with our fall semester. Now, when we were at River Valley, Mrs. Molnar and I taught together. And then when I was at Woodgate, I taught on my own. And on the first semester, we did an engineering lesson. And it was about stormwater runoff. And that is a major situation in larger cities. And it's what happens when that stormwater runoff is polluted. And so they had to come up with some engineering solutions to some of those problems. And they actually engineered models of a model city that would help them reduce the amount of runoff into the river. Ms. Molnar, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, sure. We went through 4 different activities, and the first one we looked at just what the city was like with pollution in itself, and then we just started adding elements to it. We talked about permeable pavement. We added barriers. We talked about different ways. Yes, the green roofs, different ways that the water could be caught. And it was really neat to see the differences among the same materials that the students came up with and their solutions and the teamwork that went into it. It was a really fun lesson for them.
What do you think the most challenging aspect of that particular assignment was?
I would say starting off, sometimes the teamwork. A lot of them were very, individual in their ideas, and so having to come together and figure out how they can incorporate everybody's ideas, that was really neat to see, because by the first lesson, everyone started wanting to do their own deal, but by activity 4, it was really neat to see them merge those ideas and take what they've already used and expand upon it and improve it. Lindsay, did you have anything?
Yeah, I think that just thinking outside of the box and thinking in a non-traditional way, and that's part of what we talked about with the engineering, is it's so important to think in a new and different way, because engineers have to come up with new solutions to problems that are here. If the solutions already existed, we wouldn't need engineers. And so it was really neat to see them just go beyond where they thought they could go and the success that they had at the end, but also what they learned from their failures during that. And, we talked about failing forward and learning from your mistakes. And I think that's, very much real life experience. It's what we do in our professions. I think every profession probably can learn a lot from that. So it was just really fun.
And we also looked at some real cities, too, where this was actually occurring, and they got to see those real-world connections. And one of the particular cities that we looked at, their river started off at a D grading scale system that they had, and by the over, 10 years improvement time, they had got up to a B+. They wanted to be in an A, so she talked about some things that they still wanted to work at. So that was cool to see that, even though that they accomplished a great goal, they're still not done. There's still always room for improvement.
Right. It was the Charles River in Boston, I think is what it was. And this unit is an engineering is elementary unit. And if your child had been with us in elementary, you might have seen them do some of these units that are similar in 1st and 2nd grade and 3rd and 4th grade. So it's great content, and it's always really engaging for the kids.
Great. Amy, do you want to talk about what you did in the fall semester with your 5-6 lessons?
Sure. Our program won a grant for the Big Shot camera, and so I started that out with the 5th and 6th graders at both campuses. And if you go to bigshotcamera.com, you can learn more about it. But it allowed students to build a digital camera with multiple components. And so the main objective was just to, or there were several, but obviously to see what all the working components are of the camera, how that comes together, and then even the website broke it down to what each one of those components, how they function, what their purpose is. And so once the students built that, they were allowed, after we kind of went over some of the basics of what the camera, how it operates, what the different buttons were for, And then also just even some basic photography tips. We went around the campus, took photographs. They then uploaded those photographs to their Midway Drive, and from their Midway Drive, if we had time and the access, we then also placed it on their Google Drive, so they'd have access to photographs at home. And then we utilized a website called PicMonkey.com so they could edit and manipulate their photographs, which they seemed to enjoy. And so I guess the big takeaway I think the kids seem to come away with from that unit or activity was just kind of realizing they could actually put something together that could function, and that there is a purpose for each of those parts, and the depth that actually goes into a piece of basic technology like that. And then also the photography. I think it was neat just having them actually utilize some of those tips instead of just randomly snapping pictures. They actually were trying to take some photographs with some thought, and actually, some elements of art involved with that.
So you said that they would be able to access those photos at home. Would you just mind kind of explaining how students would be able to pull that information up at home if they wanted to share that with their parents, or their parents wanted to kind of prompt them to be able to see that information?
Right. If they were able to get them to their Google Drive, on probably the quickest way that they might be familiar with the way we utilize it at school was getting on the Midway homepage. And in the middle of the Midway homepage, there's a blue banner that has different categories. One of those is students. And when you click on students, several options down, it should say Google Apps. And if they'll click on that, it'll allow them to log in with their username and password. And their username is their email address, but it's a little bit different, and I can go into that later, or you can email me the specifics on that. And then their password is one they commonly use with their iPad. And so they could access their drive. You could also just go through google.com, and in that upper right-hand corner, log into their Google Drive or Google account that way. For kids who maybe didn't have a chance to upload from their camera roll on their iPad, or if they were able to get it to their Midway Drive, put it onto Google, they can still do that if they have access or time on their home campus, and I could help them go through those steps if they need to. They could just email me.
Awesome. I'm just going to quickly ask you the same thing I asked Lindsay and Tammy. What do you think the most difficult aspect or the most challenging part of this assignment was for the students to complete?
I think it was a couple of things. Rate, the amount of time they were working on it, and then a confidence factor. I think for some of them it almost was a little intimidating putting together a piece of technology that maybe they initially had the misconception that they would never be able to, like, kid could not build a camera. And so I saw relief when they were actually successful in their faces, and even that pleasant surprise and kind of a boost in confidence that they were able to accomplish that. And then on the pacing, it was tricky because I didn't want kids to feel like they were kind of being held down and not able to work as fast as they'd like to, because some of them naturally were able to assemble it on their own quickly, and then some of them needed a little more guidance. And so just trying to find that balance of allowing them to utilize both the website, the actual handwritten manual that came with the camera, and then I also modeled it under the document camera, how to place each component. And so just trying to let each one of them work at their own pace at a comfort level where the camera would still end up being assembled correctly and function in the end so they could take photographs.
Great. In the fall semester, I taught a lesson over mock trial. So I introduced the students first thing right out of the gates to a couple of terms that they would need to be able to use throughout the day that they may not have encountered up to this point in time. We mentioned things like, well, I'm kind of drawing a blank here myself, direct examination, cross-examination, prosecution, defense, opening statement, closing statements. Then after we defined each of those terms and what they mean within the context of a mock trial or a court case, we talked about the kind of flow of the trial. Who addresses the jury first? What do they do to open their statements? How do they go about explaining what they're about to try and present, and what information they have, what reasons the jury has to listen for, so they kind of prep their case before they get started so that everybody knows exactly what to expect as they start moving forward in the trial. So after we talked through the process of the trial, I gave them a sample opening statement for a court case that they would not be actually following through with. So they had an opportunity to try writing an opening statement before they ever had to present this to the class in an actual mock trial setting. I think this initial opportunity to write an opening statement showed that there was quite a higher degree of difficulty in preparing a group of people to hear what you were about to say than what the students initially anticipated. A few of the opening statements were kind of sparse the first time we wrote through them, and as we read and shared with the class and got some feedback from peers and heard what other students were thinking writing opening statements for the exact same court case, we had a lot of realization that you have to really understand what you're about to present, what your evidence is before you ever address the jury, before you ever begin to go into a court case. You need to know exactly what you're planning on saying, what you're trying to prove, and how you plan on going about that so that you can lay out your plan right from the beginning. And then as soon as we had gone through the opening statements at the very beginning of the day, we went ahead and jumped into the very first mock trial that they likely have ever encountered. The class was split into two teams, one team prosecution, one team defense, and they were given the documents that they needed to defend their witnesses. Once the teams were separated, they got to choose who wanted to be an attorney, who wanted to be a witness, how they wanted to separate out the roles within the actual trial itself. But then everybody worked together to come up with an opening and closing statement. Everybody worked together to develop questions that the attorneys would ask the witnesses, and the attorneys and witnesses separated out later after that and actually worked on asking the question and then answering those questions so that you were able to present the best information possible whenever you presented your side of the trial. They were also challenged to consider what they were going to do for their cross-examination. The cross-examination proved to be the most difficult portion of the mock trial because students didn't have an opportunity to practice their cross-examination with the person that they were asking the questions to. So if one of the students was an attorney and they were participating in the cross-examination, they had to come up with questions on the fly based on what the witness was telling them as they answered the questions. So many of the students had to think on their feet. They had to be very quick. They had to analyze the answers and then come up with a way to ask a question that tried to corner the witness into a position where they almost had to admit guilt or show some kind of weakness in their story that might cause the jury to question whether or not they are believable. The second half of the day, we passed out a new trial. We ran the same kind of system. Students had time to prepare their statements, their witnesses, their questions, and every time we ran this lesson, I saw a much higher level of competency in the questions that were being asked, in the opening statements, in the closing statements, the way that students thought throughout this entire court case. Many of them had at least some kind of experience with court cases through TV or through movies or through some kind of media where they show a dramatized courtroom, and they often said, this is nothing like what I see on TV, or this is nothing like what I thought I saw in a movie, or this is nothing like Judge Judy, was often the thing that I heard from students because that's their experience with court cases. At the end of the day, they often said, I didn't know this is what lawyers had to do. I didn't know that there was so much work before you went in. I thought people just argued in a court case. I didn't know that you had to prepare so much information. So I think for a lot of them it was really eye-opening that there was so much prep work that had to go into a court case so you could run an effective trial and either prove somebody's guilt or defend their innocence. I'll address the most difficult aspect of this particular lesson. For a lot of my students, it was finding a way to corner somebody into admitting whether or not they were guilty based on reading a series of documents. They had to practice the critical reading skills they learn and use every day in English and language arts, and they had to apply that immediately to identify the weakest aspects of a witness's statement. And try and figure out what things that person might be telling the truth in or what they might be lying about. So those critical reading skills really played a major role in their success level in what they were able to do through the course of the mock trial. Before we hop over to the spring semester and talk about the lessons we did there, I got a question asking what opportunities we know of that their child might have as far as summer extension goes, camps that they could go through, things they could do on their own at home. Is there anything that you can think of that you might be able to offer to parents if they're looking for something for their student to do, whether it's a camp that they attend or just something they do in their free time at home, things that you know students might be able to enjoy and gain a little bit of experience from during the summer? Lindsay, we started with you. Oh, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Oh, Amy.
No, well, I was just going to say a couple of things. On our Midway GT Facebook and Twitter accounts, we have an article posted today that kind of gives parents insight on what to consider when they're looking for summer opportunities for their children, a gifted child. So that might be something to kind of look at first to think about then what direction to go from there. And then in regards to local opportunities, both Baylor and MCC offer enrichment courses that children based on their interests could sign up for. Baylor is called University for Young People, and MCC has their version. And if you'll go to both of their websites, you can end up looking at University for Young People or the Kids College at MCC, and they have a catalog that lists the different courses that are available by age groups or grade levels for kids, anywhere from engineering, robotics, cooking courses, foreign languages, things in the fine arts area. And Midway actually also hosts a program called Camp Invention, which is a very fast-paced week of basically STEM activities involving science, actually now it's more even almost a STEAM of STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And that's something you could check out at campinvention.org. And then just kind of also letting your child just hang around the house and tinker and build things on their own, or kind of just having time to pursue their own passions, whether you know, art on their own or just various activities, kind of giving them some free time to think about what they're truly interested in and motivated to explore.
Lindsay, do you have anything that you know that students might be able to do during the summer?
Yeah, and I think that Amy actually introduced them to this, if I'm not mistaken, DIY.org. Did you introduce them to that?
Yeah.
Okay, I would say that is a great app, especially, and it's a website as well, to introduce to your students. And the neat thing is there are skills that they can gain, and basically they're DIY skills. They can be weaving, chess, Minecraft, so many of them. And they can actually watch videos, learn how to do it, and then upload either a video or a picture of them completing that, and then they can earn badges as well. And they can be physical badges. I believe maybe there's a small fee for those.
Yeah.
But the digital ones are completely free. And they have got just a wealth of just interesting things. You can probably talk about what you told them about, Amy, if you want to.
Well, I was amazed at there probably have to be close to 100 categories for kids to choose from. And it's neat because it can be accessed anytime, anywhere, as long as you have the internet. On any kind of smart device, and so it would be a great thing perhaps on vacations or just at home, or you know, visiting with family if they just have some free time. It's just something that since it's web-based, they can access pretty much based on your summer schedule, you know, as flexible as it could be. Yeah, just a multitude of topics that they can choose from, whether it's technical or even you know, nature-based. It goes from one extreme to the other.
And they create a username that doesn't have their name in it. It's safe. And that way anything that they upload doesn't have their name or identity attached to it.
Yes.
And then I would say for my former students, chess as well. I introduced chess to my students in first and second grade And that is such a great skill to continue learning. And my favorite thing about chess is you're never done learning. And you can always improve. The website we use in my classroom is chesskid.org. Chesskid.com, I apologize. And the website, portions of the website are free. If you have been one of my younger students, they have an account. But it's a great site. You learn really solid skills. It's like the little brother site to chess.com. So I would say that's another fantastic thing to do during the summer.
Great, and we saw quite a few of the kids come up with a real passion for learning how to code. They got into the coding apps that allow them to build simple games. If your student is really passionate and they're really interested in learning how to code, there is a self-taught online tool. I'm sure you've heard of Khan Academy. But within Khan Academy, if you go to the computing tab, there is a section that will teach the students how to code. They can go through that and they can learn how to code. And this will actually take them through HTML and CSS. And it'll teach them how to build a website from scratch, basically. They'll actually be going through typing the words in, explaining what's going to happen on the website. They'll have to open and close the parentheses and set up the parameters of the website. It's rather intense. It's going to take a little bit of perseverance and a little bit of stick-with-itness to get through that. It's going to be something that's going to be challenging throughout the summer. But if that's something that they really enjoy doing, there could be they could really accomplish a lot through that. Why don't we go ahead and move to the spring semester now and briefly explain what you tried to accomplish with your lesson during the spring semester. Lindsay, you want to start us back up on this?
I think Tammy's going to start us off with the objectives that we had because we had talked about that previously.
Fantastic.
Cool. All right. In the spring, our class did the Great Art Heist. And that was a mystery that was broken over to 3 days, which we condensed to one. There were 3 main objectives that we wanted the students to get out of it, that they would collaborate in small groups. The second was that they would analyze evidence to collect facts and draw conclusions. And the third was to present claims, sequence ideas logically, and use facts to present a suspect with motive, means, and opportunity. We dug into vocabulary. We focused on 6 words: opportunity, means, DNA, motive, and some others. And we really had to have those students really think about it and really analyze it, because some of them got, means and motive confused in the opportunity. So it was really neat to see them straighten those out and dig into the facts that they were given and then draw those conclusions together, because just like a real case, things were not all there. They got day 1 starting off, first let's back up. They got a background. And through this background, they had to highlight the information that they thought was important, talk about it with their teammates. And then from there, they got a map kind of what the scene looked like. The Great Art Heist was about taking an art piece. And so it was a good case for them to solve. After they got the map, they went into day 1 data, and day 2 built upon day 1, and day 3 finally. And at the end of day 1, they were like, "Oh, I know who did it! I know who did it!" It was fun to see the groups just be like, "Yeah, we got it." And then they would give them day 2 information. They'd all be like, "Oh, now we know it! Now we know! Oh, that's not right what we have for day 1." They'd throw that out. And then for day 3, they'd be like, "Now I'm really confused." But it was really neat to see, like, we had students working under the desk, putting sticky notes up on top some of the groups to hide the information from the other groups. I think 2 or 3 days, Lindsay, didn't we have like a mole where we had a someone really knew but they couldn't tell. So it was fun to us to try to differentiate it even for the groups that we had.
Yeah, and see, and that also we got to talk about DNA, talk about fingerprints, and we were able to show them how forensic investigators really use those things. And so we touched a little bit on DNA, and then we talked about fingerprints and how law enforcement identify those and the different classes of fingerprints. And then the students were also able to fingerprint themselves and see what fingerprints they had. And they were astonished that it was as difficult as it was to fingerprint themselves and to figure out what kind of fingerprints they had. It was quite interesting. And they all got a really personal story from me about how I also had my fingerprints taken when I got my teaching certificate. So you'll have to ask your kids about that. It is quite entertaining, needless to say. So they had a great time. It was really neat because I feel like, again, this is real world. We're showing them, you know, a future profession they could possibly have. And, you know, and that's part of our goal for them to see how they can use their gifts and talents in the future. And so I think it was really neat because they were able to see that, you know, police officers, investigators, they don't get all the evidence at once and automatically know how it is. Things come in. Lab reports take days to come in. And to see them collaborate because, you know, as a professional, you're not going to be working just on your own. You're probably going to be collaborating with others. And so to seeing how to work out those issues, and if one student had one thought and they were very set on that, it was interesting to see how the other team members might try to negotiate with them to change their mind. So it was really interesting to see.
I had to unmute my mic. Amy, do you want to briefly explain what y'all did during the spring semester?
Sure. So based on interest inventories at the beginning of the year and just hearing kids talk, there's always an ongoing interest in mythology. And so I tried to take the approach of mythology across cultures. And so I set up Edmodo Group, which, if you're not familiar, Edmodo is a website that's similar to Facebook in its format, but it's geared directly towards students in a school setting. It's very secure. Only the people that I give the code to can join the group. So, and then I can lock it down to where only those students are within that group. And so you can ask your child to log into edmodo.com at home, and they can take you to their list of groups that they're involved with. I know quite a few of them have teachers on their home campus that have set up Edmodo groups as well, so you can kind of get a look at the work they've been doing. But in our mythology group, we had several tasks. One of them was just even kind of exploring myths, fables, legends, fairy tales, folk tales, and kind of going beyond the assumption that basically they're all kind of meaning the same thing and looking at what truly differentiates those. And then from there we zoned in on mythology and looking at the two obvious, Greek and Roman, and looking at how similar they are, but yet what are those few differences, and then trying to look at other mythologies around the world, whether it be, you know, Egyptian mythology, or even they were opened up if they could come across another culture they wanted to investigate. And so some of the other tasks involved allowing them, based on that kind of investigation as a whole, then coming up with their own myth, basically on how something was created. And they could borrow ideas from other cultures, but I did not want, obviously, a copy and paste type response. And so they were given the chance to work independently or in small groups, and they developed their own myths. We also looked at comparing and contrasting different groups and whether that also might transpire at the same time during history, or if it took place at different time periods in history, and just seeing why there might be a connection between those. And then towards the end, they were allowed to then create their own god or goddess and decide what they were over, how they ruled, and what that actually meant. And so they really seemed to get into it, and it was quite fun. And then we kind of did the opposite, or something totally different. If there was time permitted, we kind of delved into coding. And so we explored some of the apps and websites that most of your children should be familiar with. And if you are interested in learning more, you can contact Evan Carpenter or myself, and we have a list of them that we've been sharing with the students for them to try exploring on their own.
Great. I'm I'm about to explain what we did in my class during the spring semester, but if you have any questions that you'd like for us to specifically focus on and answer for you, feel free to either use the Join the Conversation tab in the bottom left-hand corner of the YouTube screen, or email one of us, and we'll go ahead and read that question off and answer it for you, so that anything you have can be addressed. Has anybody received an email from anybody before I move on?
I have received one email, but it wasn't a question. It was some technical issues, so I'm trying to help them problem solve that right now.
Okay. All right, then. In my class during the spring semester, I introduced the students to a backpack design challenge. So what I did is gave the students a really open-ended problem. I asked them to design a backpack that they think would sell and be successful with people in their age group, specifically within Midway ISD, by adding a couple components to the backpack that needed to be present in order for it to be accepted as a final design. First, I needed to have a large enough backpack pocket container that would be able to hold textbooks, folders, binders, paper, things like that that you would expect to get at a school and be able to transfer from home to school and back safely. The next thing I asked them to do is have a pocket that was designed for pens or pencils so that they could have a place to put their writing utensils and not have to dig through a major pocket and try and find that stuff underneath their books and their binders and things like that. And the final component that I required of the students was an iPad pocket that was made out of heavy-duty, waterproof fabric that was sealable so that students could put their iPad safely into their backpack and be able to carry it with them without having to hold it in their hands. From there, I asked the students to group up, come up with a couple more ideas that might make a backpack more successful, more user-friendly, or features that might just be more attractive to a student of their age, and we put those all up on the board and voted on the two that we thought would be most successful in a backpack. That ranged anywhere from having the loop on the top of the backpack that you could use to either hang up on a hook or pick up if the backpack was on the ground, to a strap that would hold your lunchbox, to a water bottle pocket on the side. That was really open to whatever the students thought was most user-friendly or most attractive to students, and we voted on those and came up with two that we thought needed to be included. From there, I gave the students a list of materials that they could use to build their backpack, and they were given the price per square foot or per sewn inch, and they had to figure out how much of the material they would need to build each portion of the backpack. That required them to use the math skills that they were picking up in their regular classes, such as area, perimeter, being able to keep track of all of their work, and figure out exactly how much money it would cost them to buy the materials to successfully make the backpack that they were designing. As they worked on it, they could start designing their backpack either by sketching it out, or I gave them paper and tape, markers, to start actually making a prototype copy of their backpack so they could see what the backpack would begin to look like as they figured out what materials they were going to need to purchase. I didn't give them an overall budget. They started from zero and purchased the materials as they went, and they had to figure out what kind of profit they would be able to make by selling this backpack. That meant they had to do some research and figure out what similar backpacks were selling for, so that they knew that when they put their backpack on the market, it was selling at a competitive price, so they knew their backpack would at least get somebody's attention and have them consider buying the backpack. I explained to them that if I picked a backpack up that looked like, if I picked two backpacks up and compared them, and one cost $30 and one cost $150, but they really did the same thing, there'd be no question to which backpack I was going to choose to buy. So that kind of zoned them in on what materials they used, where they used those materials. They started thinking about the outsides of the backpack being more important as far as strength and waterproof go, and inside pockets that never actually had to deal with the elements or had to deal with weight-bearing portions of the load could be a thinner material. They didn't have to be sewn with as heavy a fabric. So they had to start thinking about cost-effectiveness and what material they were trying to use. And then any feature they wanted to add on their backpack from there was entirely up to them. I had a lot of creativity come into this. Students they found ways to design a Wi-Fi transmitter in their backpack, and they found how much a Wi-Fi transmitter might cost, and they figured out about how much it would cost per month to have either AT&T or Verizon or Sprint offer a data package on that particular Wi-Fi provider so that they could have Wi-Fi with them anywhere their backpack went. They looked at things like a button that you could press with a preset order at Starbucks, and it would automatically send your Starbucks order to the nearest Starbucks, so when you pulled through, your drink was ready to go for you.
Nice.
Students had speakers in their backpack, so they could hook up their iPhone or iPod to their backpack and play their music straight from their backpack. So a lot of creativity coming into this. This meant a lot of extra research going into what it might cost to buy a speaker that would be small enough to put into a backpack, and then consider the design aspect of this and how you're going to keep a speaker safe. Once they had their backpack design finished and they figured out the total cost of their backpack and they'd come up with a profit margin that would allow them to be a successful company, I gave them a couple options how to proceed from there. A lot of students chose to make a video commercial so they could try and advertise their backpack to other people to create interest in their product. They could also go on to Weebly and create a website that they would use to then sell their backpack to people online so that you could place online orders. This, for a lot of students, opened up the possibility of creating different designs, color options, models, so that you could kind of pick and choose what you liked aesthetically from the backpack. So a lot of the creativity from the students came in at this point, and a lot of artistic design came in, and they were really looking at, okay, well, what would a boy backpack look like, and what would a girl backpack look like, and what would a neutral backpack look like, and how do we? Some of the students even started to ask about how to license their backpack so they could have college logos and professional logos on their backpack, so they could sell those products and not have any kind of potential lawsuit coming up because they're using the Baylor logo or the Texas A&M logo or the Longhorn logo without permissions. They knew they had to go through a process to get that accepted, so that was going to cost an additional amount of money for their company that they needed to factor into the total overall cost of their backpack. This pulled in a lot of the creativity aspects that these students have, as well as the mathematical lessons that they're learning in school every day. All right. Has anybody seen a question come in or an email from anybody that we need to address?
Yes, I did have one. They wanted to know what our Twitter and Facebook addresses were,
Okay.
because they could not find it on the website.
Okay. The Twitter is @MidwayGT. So capital WAY, capital GT. And then the Facebook page is Midway Gifted. Just Midway, MIDWAY space gifted.
And so they're specific GT accounts, not district accounts. So that's what they were asking, if they were just district accounts that had tweeted that out. So they are our program. Amy does run those. So she's the one, she tweets out some great articles. So make sure that you follow @MidwayGT, because there's some really valuable information on there. And seeing if I got any more. I think that's it right now.
From the explanations of what our lessons were, it sounded like there wasn't a whole lot of physical student products that were going home. If parents were interested in seeing a little bit about what their students did through the course of the day when they were in the GT pullout, is there a way for them to access their students' work?
Yes. Is that to me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We have, the students have created their very own website. The website is very similar to the one you visited tonight to see this showcase. So they created a Weebly, and on that Weebly, they have a page for each of the days that they visited us. And so there should be at least 6 to 7 pages on there, and they hopefully created information about each of them. There should be pictures, there should be explanations, even pictures of their products, hopefully. A lot of their products were tech-based, and so you might be able to see screenshots or pictures of what they looked like. We asked your students to email them to you on their last day at GT. So if you've not received them, you can email us. We might have their address if they kept the domain the same, but some of them got a little creative with their domain names. So they might not be exactly what we have. So if you haven't seen them, ask your child first. And then if they can't figure it out, we'll certainly point you in the right direction.
All right. Well, there's a little bit of different scheduling, it seems like, every year for the 5-6 program as we kind of narrow in on what works best for the GT side of this and for the intermediate campuses, trying to deal with their schedules, find what is the least restrictive way for us to pull the students and offer our program. Last year, we met with students 1 hour a week, normally on Fridays. This year, we have backed off to once a month, but we pull the students for an entire day. Amy, do you feel like we've been able to accomplish more by seeing the students less frequently, but for a longer time period each time we see them?
I do feel that we've been able to accomplish more in the sense of starting and completing a unit within that one day without interruptions. Due to scheduling or events that might take place on campus. And so losing that 1 hour each week or every other week last year really made a difference in what we were able to get through. But at least having the one full day dedicated allowed for that entire unit to be taken care of. Would I like to see more than 1 day a month? Of course, but that was much better, and I felt like we at least got some things covered.
Lindsay, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I just feel like it's so valuable to be able to start and finish something in one day. And like when you carry it on from week to week to week, it seems to drag on a bit. And then you lose a lot of that consistency and the continuity of doing it in one day. And so it was a challenge for us to plan, to try to figure out something that would work in this environment. But it ended up being really rewarding, I feel like, because the students had that accomplishment at the end of the day. And we were able to follow it through. So the things that we focused on were things that we felt like were very focused on student interest and things that the students would really care about. And so that was really our goal, and also to make them engaging and fun, but also that deeper critical thinking at the same time.
I'm going to kind of dovetail off of that point with the engagement and the creativity that we try to offer in these lessons. We only get to see the students 7 times through the course of the year, so when we design lessons, I think our goal is to try and pull skills that they're learning in the regular classroom, the math, the science, language arts, social studies, things that they're picking up from their everyday teacher, and incorporate those into either real-world applications like solving crimes, trying to solve mysteries like a detective would in the real world. Going into a courtroom and preparing a court case so that you have all of your points laid out in front of you, ready to go. You know what you're going to prove, so your critical thinking or your critical reading has gone into effect at that point. But while we're doing all of this, we're trying to offer it in a creative way, in an engaging way that allows the students to encounter an open-ended question, a problem that they have to solve on their own without a whole lot of guidance. I feel comfortable saying that when we introduce a lesson, we try to introduce it and then facilitate from that point on while the students come up with the solution really on their own. There's not a whole lot of teacher in front of the classroom lecturing once we introduce whatever the situation is that we're giving the students during the course of that day. So we try to really take advantage of the time that we have with the students to have them working independently, creating their own solutions to problems, trying to judge how successful those solutions would be and determine what might be a better solution, or if somebody has a suggestion that might improve them, kind of merging what students are thinking so that they can come up with the most successful solution within the group. We don't have the opportunity to present a math lesson or an English lesson, so it looks a little bit unusual in the typical classroom setting. But I think that in the end, the students come out with a real large benefit from the type problems that they're encountering, because they have to use the critical thinking and they have to put these skills that they're getting in the classroom together and use them in a realistic situation.
And Evan, I'm going to toggle off what you said. I was reading a lot of the reflections from the 5th and 6th graders, and they kept going back to the fact that GT is such a risk-free environment, and that they can just take those chances and open up their minds and think about it and just feel safe You know, not have to worry about, if I share this, is this going to be the exact right answer? Or, because, you know, like when you're in math class, there's usually, you know, we all know that 5 + 3 is 8. And so in this environment, they're able to have those open-ended opportunities and the opportunity to just stretch their brain and connect it to things at a deeper level. So
we have about 10 minutes left in our stream tonight, so if there's anything that you would like for us to address, any concerns that you have, any questions you have about the program, anything you'd like for us to try and answer for you, go ahead and get those into us now. There is a little bit of a delay if you ask us a question using the Q&A application through the Google Hangout. So if you want to get something to us that way, this might be a good time to go ahead and try and get that into us. There is no delay on email, so if you send us an email, we should be able to get that here pretty quickly and answer that for you. Is there anything else that y'all like to say about what you did in your 5-6 classroom, things that you saw from the students that we haven't addressed yet?
We did get a question about the grant that we recently won, and so it might be an interesting time to talk about that. At the GT teachers and the technologist at Woodgate, Sarah Collins, we wrote a grant for something we're calling the Collaboration Station. And this is going to be a classroom at Woodgate, and we're hoping it will be a classroom of the future. There will be no teacher desk. The furniture is all very movable. It can have multiple configurations. And it will be equipped with large monitors that are mounted on the wall, where students can plug in their iPads and really collaborate instead of being huddled over one iPad when they're working on something together. The tables will be whiteboard tables where they can draw out a story map or a plan or some kind of problem they're working on. There will be, it's just going to be a really neat place where collaboration is encouraged. It's not going to be students sitting and facing the teacher. And all of my colleagues helped write it, so I'm going to let them hop in and describe some of their favorite things about it as well.
All right, I'll go. You know, this is kind of the way that education is moving in the college level. Students are having opportunities to work together to study, to solve problems, to complete projects. I think that from my limited experience in the world outside of education, this is a more realistic way for people to complete their actual daily work duties. It's not always something that you sit at your desk and work by yourself, but you go and look for assistance from other people, and you need a place that you can meet together and work and share your ideas real time so that you can get immediate feedback from somebody, and if somebody has a better idea or a different idea or they have a different perspective, this allows students to very quickly get feedback from their peers in a meaningful way. It allows them to share their work directly in front of each other. If another group is having success with something that they're struggling on, they can very quickly pick their work up and move over because all you have to do is roll a table. So this allows students to really help each other when they encounter problems, and students that have mastered something can help teach it to somebody. This would mean students that, you know, at times maybe aren't as successful in a standard classroom might have success in this situation, and they can feel like they're contributing to the classroom by helping other people. Tammy, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think from just what we talked about with the vision of it, I think it's also going to bring out a lot of leadership skills. They're going to have to present their ideas in a meaningful way. They're going to have to give constructive feedback and constructive criticism to each other. So I think it'll help even with the social aspect of just learning how to work together. Amy, you wanted to throw anything else in there?
I just think having the flexibility that type environment offers, and even the novelty in the sense of it being something new and not as restrictive as the traditional as the traditional classroom. Just something different. It's amazing, just even in our classrooms, when they're given a chance to work beyond their desk, what they end up doing, and the freedom they seem to have with that. So I'm excited just to see what a new environment can do for them.
And this is really neat. It is a legacy grant from the Midway ISD Education Foundation, and so it's a larger grant than they usually give. I think it was $8,800, I believe. And then some other departments are putting funds toward it as well. Now, this classroom will be at Woodgate Intermediate, and our elementary gifted students will have an opportunity to use it, as well as all students from Woodgate Intermediate. And I think the district is hoping this might be kind of like a pilot classroom, and based on our success, hopefully spread this to other schools. So we are excited to see what will happen, and we are hoping to have this classroom up and running in the fall. So stay tuned for pictures. We'll tweet pictures about what it will look like, but we are really excited about the prospect of this kind of place for collaboration.
All right. I've not seen any other questions come in. Has anybody else seen anything that we need to address before we kind of wrap this up for the night?
I just got a question. Oh, and I actually just answered it. But it is from a student named Ashley, and she says, the grant sounds great. Is the room at Woodgate only? And for Woodgate students, or is it for other students too? So right now it is at Woodgate, but we're hoping, based on our success, that we will be able to expand it to other schools as well. So I think everyone has their eyes on this to see how it will go. So we'll have nothing but success.
All right. Well,
we don't have any more. And we need to remember that the questions are a little bit delayed. So if anyone else has any questions, let us know.
Yeah, I think I'll keep the broadcast open until 9 o'clock, just so that any kind of last-minute questions or concerns can come in. 8 o'clock? Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'll just sit here, maybe by myself until 9 o'clock. Yeah, so I'll keep this open until 8 o'clock. I certainly enjoy the opportunity to work with your students. We'd love to have more time to see them in the 5th and 6th grade. Part of it is that there are 4 of us, and we have a certain amount of time in the course of our week, so it's hard to get over and see the students for the amount of time that we would like to. We love getting to offer the opportunities that we give educationally and creatively, allow students to work outside of the typical classroom setting, to kind of challenge themselves to see what they can come up with using their creativity, their problem solving, their leadership skills, all the things that they learn in working with groups and trying to figure out ways to share their idea and take ideas from other people so that they can be successful with what they're doing in small groups as well as in individualized settings. Is there anything that y'all want to add, just kind of your experiences, your thoughts with 5 and 6 this year?
Well, and on the Weebly link that we sent you today, are also 3 buttons with student reflections, and I think those are so valuable. And the questions we asked them were, what was your favorite lesson this year? What would you change about GT Pullout? Mr.
What GT meant to you?
What does GT mean to you? And so it was really interesting to see their answers and to hear them. And, we're always open for input. If you have ideas of things that you would like to learn in GT, we would love to hear those because we are here to teach you and we're here for you. We would love to teach things that you are interested and passionate about. And that's the greatest thing about this job is we really get to refine our content to what our students are interested in.
Tammy, any last-minute thoughts?
I appreciate the chance to work with all the kiddos. It's been fun, especially seeing some of my old students. I really loved how this was project-based. A lot of hands-on, a lot of collaboration. That creativity was sparked. And then just the joy of seeing their face of pure learning and not having to stress about it. Not having to stress about the project, but seeing them actually enjoying them, getting it done. You know, I was able to help in Miss McNamara's room with the Big Shot camera, and just to see them take the pictures and put it together. And then I helped out with Mr. Carpenter for a little while with the backpack, and just to see those students be proud of what they've created, and to know that it all came from their thoughts and their true ideas. So I really, really feel the benefit of the GT Pull-Out program.
Yeah, I feel incredibly blessed to work with this population. I love working with them with 3rd through 6th and just seeing them grow over the years. And definitely I'm always wanting to hear feedback from students and parents, because we want this to be organic and grow with the students and meet their needs in multiple ways. And we can't do that unless we get the feedback to know what is truly important and what is pressing, both in the views of the student and their parents. So please always, you know, we're open to feedback to get that.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
For all of you who submitted questions, we appreciate your interaction with us. If you still have questions after this, feel free to email us, and we are happy to email you back. Definitely.
All right, well, we hit the 8 o'clock point, so I think I'm going to go ahead and shut this broadcast down. This should, fingers crossed, have been uploaded to YouTube, so tomorrow I will work on figuring out where on in the YouTube universe this has landed. I'll try and figure out what the link to this is so that we can send this out to people that maybe didn't have an opportunity to sit in tonight, or if there's something you'd like to go back and see again. Or if you hopped in late and you'd like to hear how we got this started, this should be available to you on YouTube. I'll do my best to find that and get this sent out to y'all. Those of you that made it in tonight, thanks for joining us. I hope that this was beneficial for you. I hope we answered any questions that you had, gave you a little better insight into what we do in the 5th and 6th grade GT Pull-Out program. Anything else before I close this down?
No, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good night.